And that brings us to the charter school oversight update. Would you like to introduce this item?
Certainly, it's my pleasure to introduce Mr. Chris Van Czech, our Assistant Superintendent of Administrative Services, and he is our liaison with the Livermore Valley Charter School as part of our oversight agreement, and he is going to give you the regular status update.
Thank you, Ms. Bowers. In fact, I am tonight providing the third of 3 reports that the board asked for. As you recall, we began our role as oversight agency almost a year ago, and I did a report, beginning of the year report back in September. I did a mid-year update in January, and this evening I will be providing an end-of-year report. And actually, they just sort of start rolling into each other. So this is the third of 3 this year. As you recall, we sat down with our legal representation, and we did create an oversight checklist, both for our benefit, so that we had a better understanding of what it was that we were going to do over the course of the year, and to benefit the charter schools so they knew exactly what they needed to provide us to be in compliance. We did give that checklist to them, to their chief executive officer and their principal. We went through that line by line and made real clear our expectations for the year. That report was divided into 7 separate areas of compliance that we did just to keep things organized. And you can see them listed. The general requirements has to do with their initial setup and reporting, fiscal and business operations, how they spend their money, how they get their money, how they do payroll, all those sorts of things. Their educational program has to do with the curriculum that they provide students and how they assess the extent to which their students are meeting their goals. Facilities has to do obviously with the buildings that they've taken over across the street from Costco and how those are functioning. Governance is how they run their operations. Personnel is how they hire teachers and how they evaluate teachers and other staff. And then student services has to do with the process that they use to enroll students and try to develop a balance of students demographically that are representative of the Livermore community. So as you recall, in January I delivered a report, and they had met 14 of the 15 items. We had 1 request for item action, and they actually met that. That had to do with our request that they report any changes. They had a change, what we consider to be a substantial change in their charter when they changed the way that they voted for board members, and we asked that all future changes please be run by us prior to being finalized, and they have agreed to do that. In the area of fiscal and business operations, in January they had met 74 of 89 items. We had 8 requests for action. At this point, they have now met 83 of the 89 items, and we have 3 requests for action. We're asking that they keep their website updated on a more frequent basis. We ask that they've created a receipting system in which when they take in money they provide receipts for it, so there's better accounting of funds taken in and funds leaving. And we've asked that they develop a system whereby they can reconcile their budget and payroll, which is a system that we currently have in place, and they do them separately. And so again, they're in compliance in 83 of 89 items at this point. In the area of educational program, they had met 37 of the 44 items in January. There are still 2 future items. One has to do with the LCAP that has not yet been completed. They are required to provide an LCAP and a budget that goes along with that. We also asked that they create a year-long professional development plan. They did share with me that they have professional development, they provide professional development, but they hadn't developed a year-long plan. So they were providing professional development sort of as they went, as opposed to a comprehensive plan that they create at the beginning of the year and then follow through with throughout the course of the year. So we are still asking that they provide us with that for next year. In the areas of facilities, they had met 18 of the 19 compliance items. They had not provided us with permits that they were required to provide us with when the facility opened, and they have since provided those to us, and so now they are in compliance in 19 of 19 items. In the area of governance, as of January, they had met 45 of the 58 compliance items. We had 9 requests for action. This is probably the area of greatest concern. primarily around the area of transparency, providing salary schedules in their board minutes, ensuring that their board meetings were there was proper notification of the board meetings. We had concerns that they didn't have a governance structure that was clear to their stakeholders. There was no clear delineation between the duties of the CEO and the principal and the board, and so we asked them to make those structures a little bit more transparent. They have since become compliant on 6 additional items, so they are now compliant on 51 of the 58 items. And we still have concerns about responsibilities and roles of board members and who's in charge of what. I also have some personal concerns that they hold a number of special board meetings, which sometimes indicates a lack of proper pre-planning and a need for being more transparent. I think it creates issues for their stakeholders who want to attend board meetings. I know it creates issues for me in terms of attending board meetings because they develop the need for a lot of board meetings at the last minute. And so we're asking that maybe they become a little bit more organized and a little bit more transparent in how they function as a governance structure. In the area of personnel, they were compliant in 22 of 23 items. We did request that the board approve personnel actions. They hadn't been doing that before, and now they are. So they've become compliant in that area, so now they're 23 for 23. In the area of student services, as of January 19 of 20, and the one item was in putting forth what we would consider to be strong efforts to change the demographic structure of the student population. I know that was an issue when their petition came to the board. I guess it's been almost 2 years now, that their student population does not adequately reflect the Livermore community, and so we asked that they undertake measures to try to modify that. They did do a number of things in terms of outreach to try to attract a more diverse group to their school, and so I oversaw that process. I oversaw the process of enrollment. They have a lottery system that I had a chance to see how that worked, and again, so we're feeling as though that their efforts have been apparent, that they're moving in that direction. The impact that will make on their student population remains to be seen, and it will take a number of years of efforts before they're able to change, because really they're only bringing in kindergartners, and so out of 1,000 students, they only really bring in 120 new students each year. So changes to the demographics of the entire student population are going to take a number of years. But I believe we are appreciative of the fact that they did undertake some outreach efforts to try to make some change in that area. So in summary, they were compliant in 248 of the 264 items. We've created requests for action in the areas of non-compliance. I will state that the relationship between the district and the Tri-Valley Learning Corporation has continued to be very cooperative. They're responsive to me when I ask them for information. I guess in moving forward, my hope is that I won't have to ask for information, that the information will be provided prior to my having to request it. And again, that's still sort of a dance that we're going through in terms of what are responsibilities, what should they provide us just as a matter of course, and what should we have to ask for. And so again, we're making progress in that area. I still have some general concerns about their governance procedure, about transparency of operations. We're hoping that they become more transparent with their stakeholder population as we move forward. And now that they've completed the checklist for this year, or most of it at least, we get to start all over again. And so the checklist for 2014-15 is now blank, and so we go back to sort of square one and do the whole thing all over again. So in general, though, I'd say that I'm pleased with the efforts that they've undertaken this year to try to become as compliant as possible in some areas where perhaps there wasn't strict oversight in past years. So next steps, they are going to provide me with student achievement data. Again, part of their charter petition was to make gains in all areas for all students, and they are gathering student achievement data for the year. They're going to provide that to me so I can see the extent to which they've actually been successful in that area. We will continue, and when I say we, I mean Susan, we'll continue to review budget and cash flow just to ensure that they're, keeping things on the right track. And again, we will meet with their leadership to review checklists and expectations as we move forward into year 2 of our oversight relationship. So that is report for the evening. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have, or at least attempt to.
Mr. Rogi?
You had mentioned they were doing an awful lot of extra board meetings. Are they staying in compliance with Brown Act and things?
Yeah, and that part of it is exactly that. Yes, they are staying in compliance with the Brown Act, and in some cases they're finding that deadlines, the board has to approve certain items by certain dates, and sometimes if they hadn't pre-planned, they have to call a special board meeting to make sure that they get approval. My sense is maybe in past years they just approved sort of after the fact, and so I'm appreciative of the fact that they're keeping deadlines. I'm just hopeful that as we move forward into the future years that they sort of pre-calendar those items as is necessary.
As they should.
Yes.
Thank you.
Dr. Dunlop?
Yeah, the issue of monitoring student achievement is a problem right now when we're in transition between, our old test base and the new test base that we're going to develop. How do you hope to work that in this interim time?
They do have some. They have some local assessments that they are using, as we do. They've created benchmark assessments and summative assessments that are theirs that they've created, and so the difficulty with that is I don't have a history of it to compare to, and so I guess in this year where we don't have statewide testing that I can look at and compare to last year, it really is a matter of taking them at their word that these are pre-tests, these are mid-year tests, and these are summative tests, and I'm going to look at their results and see if they've made the progress that they expected to.
If they've been using these benchmarks in past years, are they going to share that information with you?
Yes.
Okay, so they'll be open on all of the information to allow at least some possibility of assessing that during the next couple of years before we get back to a benchmark. And overall, do you sense that we've had a dramatic improvement in relationship between the two organizations in this year? Is it working well, or?
I mean, I believe so. I believe so. I think that initially there was fear on their part that we were going to become sort of be very draconian in our efforts and look to get them. And I think when we were able to, I know that Mrs. Bowers and I sat down with their leadership team, and when we laid out the checklist and said, here's what our expectations are. We're not trying to get you. We're going to provide you with this information up front. Here are things that you should be providing us with, and some of them are the law, and some of them are the MOU that you signed yourself. There's nothing unreasonable here, and we went through those line by line, and it was a very exhaustive process. But I think at the end of it, it's like, okay, we get it. Here's what you want, and we said, provide these to us, and we'll be fine. And so I think, to that extent, there's less of a concern on their part that we're out to get them, and hopefully less of a concern on our part that they're trying to, get around the regulations. And again, charter schools by their nature are freed of some of the regulations, and we get that. It's frustrating that we're not freed from those same regulations, but we get that, and so, but within the game that's been created for charter schools, we're just asking that they play it fairly, and I think this year they have. I'm feeling positive about how the relationship has gone this year.
Good, thank you.
Mrs. White? I guess I'm concerned that they're still not using the standardized accounting software, because around the state, not only do school districts, but other government entities use this standardized accounting software so that people can look at the books and understand what's going on. And one of our ongoing concerns has been fiscal accountability, and it's hard to do fiscal accountability when you don't know what the line items pertain to. So I heard you say that they're not using it, and the slate starts over. What are their plans going forward for using standardized accounting software?
Well, I think they are using standardized accounting software. My reference was specifically to a control mechanism that reconciles budget and personnel. That was our concern.
Oh, just the position control.
Correct. And so that was the thing specifically that I referred to in my report. I know that Susan gets their reports, and I don't want to speak for Susan, but I know that it's it's perhaps not the same form that we use, but it's an acceptable form. Is that accurate?
The simplified.
Yeah, they use the charter school version, which is a little bit more simplified, but the account code structure is the same. So if you look at the 1,000 object codes, it means the same thing as our 1,000 certificated salaries. So it is comparable in that respect. It's not quite as detailed.
And that's okay.
But
They're one school versus.
Right.
Okay. So now they're using that and they're reporting to the county fiscal oversight the way that they're supposed to. Because I know for many years, even though required by state law, they didn't report their financials to the county.
So they send them to us, and then we review them, and then we send them on to the county, yes.
Great. I'm glad to hear it. Thank you very much. Is there any member of the public that wants to comment? All right. And that takes us to the general fund budget.